Hi and welcome to Research and Information Skills. My name's Mike Harris. I'm the unit coordinator for this particular unit. I have been for the best part of 18 months. This unit, I guess, as a preface to this introduction, has gone through, I guess, many changes, possibly transformations depending on your perspective. What I have found is it's been difficult at times to do a true measure of people's ability to retrieve information and then apply it or use it in some productive form. And given that we're actually looking at retrieval as opposed to necessarily outcome, it's not always the easiest thing to measure. However, in its current form, and I guess I should say that the changes this unit have undergone have been driven by student evaluation, but also collegial evaluations. So in other words, colleagues who have had input, who've either taught on the unit or been tutoring in the unit, have given me feedback. What I should say is that in its current form, I want to believe that the measure for the assessments themselves does actually fit the purpose that they were designed to do. In other words, that they somehow assess your ability to access information, understand the information, and then begin to apply that information. And given that that's I guess the emphasis of this particular unit, and that's the rationale for this unit, then I hope that I fulfil that goal. What I'd like to do first off is run through the unit outline. I'm hoping you've all either got an online version of it, in which case you can simply go along on screen with me, or if you've printed out a hard copy, which is what I've got in front of me, you can simply go through parts of it. What I hope that you can all do is have a look on page 2 at the unit description. For this unit, it's simply a measure and the application of retrieving information. So the rationale for this unit effectively is that you, as a student, by the end of doing this unit, should be able to navigate a whole range of information sources. So actually being able to, first of all, plan or map an approach to finding information, and then actually going out and doing or enacting that plan. The message that you'll get over and over, as I've put in the unit description, is that you'll see very quickly, I hope, that the library system, particularly at UTAS and other universities, is incredibly effective in terms of helping you find information. Once you realise this, and you do these things by rote, it'll almost become second nature, and you'll wonder why you never used it in the first place. And I guess I'm extending this to public libraries as well, using catalogue systems, etc. The 4 main intended learning outcomes for this unit, and I'll read them simply to make them clear. Number 1 is to identify and retrieve information from a variety of sources. And in this case, it could mean just using newspapers or library systems or books, be it reference or just off the shelf. And extending that to things like TV and radio, if the case called for it, or I should say at least if the assessment called for it. The second learning outcome is to select information appropriate to the academic task, and this is an important thing. This is something I emphasise across the course, is our ability to judge information and judge it according to academic measures. I won't say a lot about those measures here, because I'll be labouring the point certainly by week 3 to 4, and hopefully, like the other parts of this course, you'll simply do it as a habit more than anything else. The third intended learning outcome is to apply the requirements of referencing informed by the notion of academic integrity. And what this suggests is that all the work, so the sources and information that you gather, are then referenced correctly within your work. So in other words, that if you are using someone else's ideas, someone else's, say a quote for instance, using anyone else's work within your work, that you can actually reference them both satisfactorily in terms of academic integrity, so you don't get called up for plagiarism, etc., but also that you acknowledge the sources that you use, because these people often have done a lot of work in their areas and deserve acknowledgement for that work. The fourth learning outcome is develop research and information strategies for an academic task. So effectively this is the application. So you get the information, how then do you use it in your work? And whilst other units such as academic writing take this up and possibly are more direct in terms of its use or applicability, I still like to address this to some extent within the work and within this unit. So there may be some crossover if you're doing both units. I apologise for that in advance, but my argument is, and so is the argument of our team, that repeating work is about reinforcement rather than repetition. And I would hope that if you do have to endure these things several times, I would simply put yourself through it and put it down to a learning experience, because believe me, this will ultimately entrench itself as habits throughout your academic career. Beyond the intended learning outcomes, a more practical thing you need to know about is where you can possibly get help. So if you look on page 3, there's a series of mugshots of a bunch of people on our team, all of whom are incredibly helpful and incredibly friendly, as you'd expect. The key thing is here that if you are having difficulties, now for most people listening to this recording, they'll be distance students. Your first port of call will be the distance tutor. In this case, it'll be Julie Johnson. Any assignments, any work that's meant as a distance student is meant to be directed towards her. However, if you have issues, both relating to the distance tutor or simply to the work, etc., by all means contact me. My email address is there, as is my telephone number. So if you have any specific issues that you'd like to be considered beyond work that you'd otherwise direct towards a distance tutor, by all means contact me. I'm free to be contacted at any time during, obviously, work hours. You can email me at any time. There's an occasional delay in my response in emails, only because of the workload during the week. However, I will respond to all genuine emails. The other practical thing I want to mention is Milo and the use of Milo. I'm hoping that all students within literally the first 2 to 3 days will not only access Milo, but start to actually look at materials online in Milo. The sooner you begin to navigate in Milo, the easier it is. And from my experience with Milo, because remember I had to start somewhere too when I started this job. It's a very intuitive program, very easy to navigate, and very quickly you become proficient and confident in using Milo. And the sooner you start that process, the more confident you'll be. And I guess ultimately the more articulate you can be in terms of using discussion boards and in terms of accessing other materials. On page 5 I talk about recommended readings. There's several books that I mention in there. How to Write Better Essays is a book that I consider to be of utmost value, not just in this unit but across all the other units. And in fact, as I say in a small comment below, that the value of the text is extended into your degree, I would argue. You would be using this for at least the first year or so in your degree, beyond anything you do with the Bachelor of General Studies. Other texts, I consider the Burns text to be incredibly good. I have a copy of it. I use it as a resource. And Bricks is very good as well, hence I've put them in there. I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying all three because they do, have themes that repeat and maybe possibly slightly different perspectives, but essentially they're study skills books. They have how you can actually arrive in a better place in terms of writing essays, in terms of doing research, etc. So it's a whole suite of different study skills that you can not only get an overview of, but get some genuine practical advice about doing. Still on practical matters, but far more closely tied to what this unit's about, is the assessments. If you ever look on page 7 of the unit outline, I've listed there's 4 assessments. I'll very briefly talk about the weighing to begin with, then I'll talk about the individual assessments. Now, if you look at the percentage weighing for each one, assessment 1 has a fairly low weighing relative to the other assessments, 20%, and really it's a starting point. It allows you to actually do an assessment that hopefully most people can confidently get through. It literally enlists you to use the library system and find out a whole range of information, in the sense that you have to go and find out what academic and non-academic sources are. Now, I give a range of examples for this particular assessment. But I'm hoping that people will explore this themselves. They'll not only look in the library system, but perhaps look at newspapers, etc., magazines. But yeah, I mean, start to look, I guess, cast a wide net in terms of the information, and part of that will be retrieved on the library system. The second assessment, which is a search log, which is, I guess, a way of somehow demonstrating that when you undertake a search to find information for a particular assessment task, that you can log and map the things that you do and the information that you get. Now that's worth 30%. It's far more involved than the first, because the first is an essay. The big one, which I guess I want everyone to start considering, probably from week one, to be honest, is a literature research project, which means that you actually choose a topic, so any topic that you like, and then must develop a research project round. So in other words, you have to write around, say, 1,500 words on a topic of your choosing. And whilst this might seem incredibly enticing and tempting at the start, what the process involves often is actually getting a subject that you're interested in, and I guess reducing it down to a point where you can comfortably write 1,500 words about it. You have to get your choice of research topic actually approved, but I'll talk more about that in a second. The last assessment task is for the participation mark. Now this is about, particularly for distance students, this is about your involvement on discussion boards, etc. And obviously handing in assignments, etc. And for the most part, for distance students, like I said, it's your voice in the discussion boards that will be measured, and also, like I said, getting your assignments in on time, etc. But your contributions on the boards will be the most important thing. Now, for assignment 1, I want to talk a little bit more in detail about these things. We've selected 3 different areas, so 3 different pathways. There's one for science, education and arts. There are 3 different questions there. You have to deal with those, and in its most basic form, essentially what you have to do is find literally an article that you have determined is non-academic and an article that is academic, and literally write about the differences. In this case, you've got 500 words. It has to be clear. You have to outline the differences between the academics and non-academic sources. So essentially, you're just literally delivering to me, or to the distance tutor in this case, your understanding of how 2 articles on the same topic differ. It's as simple as that. You'll be given guidance, obviously, and you'll be given materials to obviously help you understand what those differences are. All you have to do is apply it in reality, in this case 2 articles, and then, I said, show us that you know how to differentiate between the 2. What this does, or the rationale behind this assessment, is that hopefully whenever you do assessments in the future for university, that you won't fall into the trap of using sources that are non-academic, which inevitably would mean that your arguments would have less veracity. Assessment 2 is a search log and a reference list. What you have to do here, and I won't labour the point too much, but essentially you have to unpack the essay question. In this case, its educational attainment is determined by wealth. Discuss. So what you have to do is find out a whole lot of information as though you were genuinely going to actually have to answer this answer in terms of an assessment. And in this case, I'm looking at if this was an essay question. So you have to find all the information that would help you answer this question. You have to submit a search log, which tells me how you found the information you found it, where you found it. You have to obviously hand in a bibliography of all the books that you get. In this case, you've got 7 suitable items to find. Please note that there is an error. I put a small note there. It says your 10 items. It should read your 7 items. Must include at least 1 example. And I've put there a book chapter, a journal article. So that is a typo. That is a mistake. You only need to find 7 suitable items and literally put them in list form. There'll be a template that's put up. I'll put the news item to make sure that no one makes a mistake here, because I don't want you finding 10 items. That's fairly excessive. Sorry, there's been a pause in recording. I had to attend to a couple of issues. Anyway, beyond that, there's a couple of other things I should mention. I noticed that there's another typo in the task length section for task 2. It says the template will be available in week 9, whereas in fact it'll be available in week 7. So if you could actually make a note of that, the template's available in week 7, not week 9. The other thing I have to mention is that the part D, develop an answer to the question for a discussion in the week 13 lecture. That's for attending students only. I'll make a discussion area available in week 8, I think. Week 8 will be fine for distance students. So I'm hoping that everyone will have some sort of statement to make about their readings and what they believe about the information they've found. Anyway, that's assessment 2. With assessment 3, sorry, plenty of pages to turn. This assessment 3 is a literature research project. I'm not going to say a huge amount about that. I want you to read through all the materials and all the things that you need to find. What I would like to say here is that it's made up of 4 parts, one of which is not marked, which is the actual project proposal. The second is the research plan and question analysis. That's worth around 40%. And what that hopefully will give an indication of is your ability to develop a plan of attack, an approach to your research, which hopefully you would use throughout your academic career. The third part is developing a writing plan based on the research. So actually, before you even write, taking the information that you have and attempting to put that into a framework as if you were going to be writing an essay. Well, in this case, you're writing actually a research project, but I want to see evidence of links between not only a research plan and the writing plan and the finished product. So in other words, continuity, somehow that the two inform the latter. Now, there's 50% weighing on the final part of the project. I should say that I'm going to be focused, and the rubric focuses on, and if you're not sure what a rubric is, it's simply a criterion reference guide. So in other words, it outlines what bits of an assessment are being graded and how they're being graded and what weighing. What I'll be looking for is how the sources are actually used within the scope of your project. So it's not so much about the project itself, whilst that's going to have integrity and be standalone. I'm going to be focused and looking at how your research, so the sources you find, are integrated into your work. There's quite a lengthy briefing on all the different aspects of the particular parts to this assignment. I'll be putting quite a lot of material up on Milo. I'd hope that you'd all access it. What I should say is that whilst the assignment itself is 1,500 words, you have a 10% margin going up or down. So you could simply provide me with a project that's, say, around 1,300 to 1,400 words, or you could provide me with one with 17, or around 17, I should say. If it's well written, and this is what I often say to my attending students, I would read more, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you'll get more marks. What I'd struggle with is if it's poorly written and it went well over the word count, then I would definitely mark you down. As I imagine, no doubt, the distance tutor will. That's Julie. Just remember, only because I've mentioned Julie's name, that all material, so all assessments, go to Julie. She is the one who does the assessments, or should I say the marking of those assessments, and any other questions. And there is a discussion board on Milo set up that actually has the title of any questions for Julie as the distance tutor. With the fourth assessment, what you have is a participation mark, and what this is, hopefully, a measure of how, I guess, your involvement in the unit itself and your commitment to the unit. And it says on page 15, for distance students, this means that you need to log into Milo, and we can actually see how often you've logged into Milo and what your activity has been. You have to complete all those assessments on schedule, and obviously any posting into discussion boards. For instance, for the search log, you need to come up with some sort of answer, and as I said, that discussion board will be posted for use in that regard. The rest of the material in the unit outline is worth reading, particularly that relating to requests for extensions. With the submission of assignments, there'll be an indication on each assignment about how it should be submitted. If that is the case, then please submit it that way. What I've found is every semester there seems to be the odd distance student who seems to send the work to me for some reason. Please do not do this, because all I have to do then is repeat the process by then sending it on to Julie, so it's double handling. Please, if you're a distance student, ensure that you send all your work to Julie Johnson. If you do want to contest the result that you got, in other words, you're not happy with it or believe you should have got more, then by all means contact me. I will obviously be conferring with Julie about this if these kind of situations do arise. As yet, it hasn't, so I'm hoping to keep that record straight. I think we're fair markers. We generally agree, and we're fairly consistent. What I would warn you off from, and I guess I should direct you to have a look at page 17 about academic integrity. If you have any temptation to copy work, or that your referencing is poor, there is avenues in which the university can check your work. We've got a software called Turnitin, which then can check your work against not only other students if it's been submitted through Turnitin, but also against work that appears elsewhere. And this particular software will give you a percentage of how much work's either been copied or taken from other places, and will tell us where those places are. So what I'd suggest is, even if you do not have the confidence to use referencing properly, I would give it a go anyway. Better to make mistakes and be honest than not. Don't try and pass off other people's work as your own, because I think over time that gets increasingly hard to hold up. Have a read in the box there on plagiarism, what it actually means on page 18. I won't labour the point. I just want to believe that everyone will do the right thing. I'm quite surprised and shocked when people don't. Luckily, it's rare. And like I said, here's one for honesty. The last thing that I want to point out in the unit outline is the unit schedule. Some of these things may change slightly in time, in terms of not necessarily the topics themselves, but maybe the focus of those topics. I kind of allow a certain amount of license, personal license that is, to change things. If there are changes, I'll indicate it in the news feed for Milo. Though generally, like I said, I do hold to the spirit of the schedule that I've put up. Anyway, that's enough for this recording. It covers I guess a very brief introduction to myself, and perhaps my expectations of the course and what I hope to set out, but also what the unit outline has to offer you. I guess a final point would be simply keep the unit outline available at any one time. It's a good reference point. Always gives you a clear guideline about when assessments are due, and obviously when to begin them in that sense. But also the unit outline is a support document that kind of lets you know about a whole range of mechanisms that could help you through more difficult times, for instance, if you encounter them during the unit. Above that, which is all very practical and slightly boring, I do hope you all enjoy the unit, and I'm hoping for good results from all of you. Anyway, thanks for listening.